Aimer back with another Mission Impossible episode review. This time I'm doing Season 4, Episode 24, which is called Death Squad. So no instructions this time. We start out with what appears to be some sort of Latin American village or something, could be Mexico, with Barney having a romantic evening with a lady who we will learn is named Alma Ross. Outside, a fellow seems to be watching their window and menacingly opens a switchblade. He watches Barney leave and then heads up the stairs. There's a knock on the door and Alma is shocked to see the man, who she calls Luis. Barney prepares to send some flowers up to Alma, but then hears a scream. He heads back up. Barney and Luis face off in a fight, which ends when Luis ends up taking a header out the window and dying because he lands on the knife. Alma tells Barney this could be really difficult for them as Luis's brother Manuel Corba is the local chief of police. We cut to Corba's office where he talks to a bookmaker named Riva with, feigned laughter. Tells his men to take him away with a meaningful look. Riva is shocked to be taken to Area 10, which he knows is the Death Squad. Corba's deputy Jacaro arrives with the news of Luis's death and Alma contacts Jim to arrange for a lawyer. Apparently, Jim and Barney are on vacation wherever we are. Corba questions Barney pointedly, not believing his story despite the street vendor corroborating Barney's story, and arrests Barney for murder. The lawyer arrives to see Barney, but Corba takes him into his office and tells him that he needs to reconsider his position about representing Barney, which he does, telling a distraught Alma that he's convinced of Barney's guilt and refuses to get involved. Jim begins to see what's really going on. In Area 10, Riva tells Barney about their predicament. They are marked for death. Jim confronts the lawyer at his home and calls Paris to mobilize Willie and get down to wherever they are right away, telling us that the street vendor has disappeared, the lawyer has been threatened, so it's up to the IMF to help Barney, as there's no evidence of previous victims or Corba's methods of making people disappear that they could take to some authority. In the cell, Barney starts MacGyvering some things as Riva watches in amazement. Willie goes to Corba's office and says that Barney and Jim are wanted jewel thieves involved in a recent emerald heist in a nearby province. Willie's representing Interpol here. Greedy Corba says he'll delay Barney's execution for a while until they can find out more about it. Meanwhile, Paris comes to Jacaro's office as a newly transferred officer, deliberately and nonchalantly flashing a massive amount of cash. Jacaro sees that he's reporting a day early, so Paris says, well, he'll enjoy the day then at the swanky San Sebastian Hotel with some ladies and booze and invites Jacaro to join him. Back in Area 10, Barney's efforts allow him to open the lock mechanism on his cell, and Riva worries that he'll be left behind, but Barney assures him he wouldn't do that. Barney is able to open the doors and let Riva out, but Jacaro and the other officers enter the cell block right at that moment, earning both men a beating. Corba visits Jim, threatening to turn him over to Interpol unless he cuts him into the Emerald deal. Jim says he can't do that because he doesn't know where the jewels are hidden, only Barney does. Corba takes Jim to the prison to talk to Barney, warning him that of course they're being watched. They stage a conversation for the goons' benefit, with Jim giving Barney hints on what to say. At the hotel, Paris and Jacaro have their little party with a couple of lovely ladies, with Paris telling Jacaro he wants to be part of the Death Squad. Paris falls over drunk and Jacaro pays the ladies and tells them to get lost. Checking Paris's wallet, Jacaro finds that he has some forged papers and clippings related to the jewel heist. Jacaro asks Paris what's really going on, and Paris admits that he came to find the emeralds from the heist. The driver had one on him when the Death Squad picked him up. It was hidden in a pocket watch. Jacaro heads off, trailed by Willie and Jim, to a warehouse where the Death Squad apparently does their business, and he starts looking through items in a locker in an effort to find the emerald that Paris told him about. Jim and Willie head inside and find a crude gallows. After Jacaro leaves empty-handed, they look at the locker as well, with various valuables from Corba's victims. They also find a huge acid vat, explaining why the bodies are never found. Jim tells Willie to mobilize Paris as they now have evidence but are running out of time to save Barney. Alma visits Barney, pleading with him to tell Corba where the jewels are to save his life. Barney tells her to just be patient and avoid Corba's prompts and threats. Barney and Riva are brought to the warehouse where the IMF has been busy preparing the place and are taken to the gallows. Jacaro offers him hoods, which Barney flatly refuses, giving Riva the strength to refuse as well. Korba, with a sadistic smile, gives the order to let them hang, and thanks to the IMF setup, they fall safely into a waiting pile of hay below the gallows, with Willie shutting the roof after them after Jim had cut the ropes earlier. The officers head down to the basement, but are too late to stop them, and attempt to give chase, but find that their car won't start, thanks to Paris sabotaging it earlier. Barney retrieves Alma, and the IMF drives away with their two new friends after having sent their evidence to the governor. Mission accomplished, such as it was. I'm going to give this episode a grade of a B. Let me start with the good. This is another pure A-team episode, which is fine. It's got some very neat teamwork for what it's worth. You know, the three who are kind of in charge of the mission, do their jobs very, very admirably. I think it's a good story. It's an interesting story. It has enough suspense in terms of, okay, how are they going to pull this off? It's not cookie cutter. It's a unique plot. So, I'm kind of glad to see that. I think one good thing about it is that it's one of these kind of personal episodes, meaning there's not actually an official mission. But the writers do a decent job. There's one thing that I didn't like, which I'll talk about later, where they don't put too much emphasis on the personal aspect. I've commented before in previous episodes to kind of take a brief kind of look back here. Episodes like Nicole, for example, from last season. That's a good example, where there's just like the writers seem to put so much emphasis on the whole romance and two people getting together thing that kind of really detracts from the story in the episode. It doesn't add to the story, it detracts from it. Here the writers do a better job of avoiding that trap. Also, I do like the fact that it does actually seem like a mission of sorts, even though it really isn't one. Jim kind of takes it on and, attacks it and deals with it and mobilizes Paris and Willie and say, let's treat this like a mission. We got to rescue Barney, and we have to find a way to take these bad guys down. In that way, I guess if we want to take a real look back in terms of an episode that we could compare to this one, it would probably be season 2, the episode called The Town. That's the one where Jim is the one in trouble. He ends up falling afoul of a small town where everybody turns out to be a communist agent. And, he learns that they have a plan going, and so they basically immobilize him, and the IMF basically has to rescue him and take the bad guys down. Very, very similar in terms of plot and idea. So if we were to take a look back, that would probably be the best episode to compare it to. Certainly that episode is better than this one, because this one does have a couple of flaws that I'm going to point out. But just to continue about the good. I like that at the end, I liked hearing the kind of jaunty music, the jaunty take on the Mission Impossible theme at the end. I checked, and it is actually the same music that we had at the end of the previous episode in this season called Submarine. I really like that music. That dun 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 dun. It's nice. I really do like that. We have other good things. Leonard Nimoy, again, gets to be his wonderful giggling slimeball persona. I really, really love that persona. I think he pulls that off really, really well. I think we're going to see it a few times more. It's always, always very enjoyable. Good stuff there. One thing I really, really liked, again, in terms of the storytelling and the characterization, as I mentioned in a lot of other episodes, the characterization, the character development seems to rely mostly on the romantic aspect where there is one. Here, not so much. It mostly happens, I should say, between Barney and Reva. And I really, really like that. They're together in the cells, they chat, and Barney's kind of quiet. He's just kind of thinking, okay, what do I do here? And, Reva's a little bit more animated, talking, hey, Barney, what are you doing? That sort of thing. But again, Barney only kind of speaks and acts when it's really important and it's so meaningful. I love the two key moments between them, where the first time, when Reva finally figures out that Barney's going to try to bust himself out of his cell, Reva says, "Barney, you won't leave me." And Barney says, "No, Reva, I won't leave you." Oh my gosh, that's yes, that's exactly right. You want to get out. You may have a mission for yourself in your own mind, but there's real people involved here, and just that moment is really, really meaningful to me. I like that, and again, it comes together towards the end where Barney and Reva are basically about to be hung by the death squad, so they think, and Jocaro offers them, hoods, hey, you're facing death, you want to cover up your heads, and Barney says, "No way, buddy." And even Reva, even though he's kind of hesitant, he takes that kind of cue from Barney and say, "No, I'm going to face my death like a man." And I don't know why I'm really kind of touched by that, and I really, really like it, but I really do. I love those little, those little bits of humanity in the characterization when they're done really, really well, and when it doesn't, take away from the episode, but it just adds to it, right? You don't need to do a lot. Sometimes less is more, and this is one of those things, especially when it's just really, really meaningful moments like this. I hope that makes sense. Moving on to things that are not so good. The one thing I didn't like about the way this episode came about is, again, the way some of the characterization happens. Towards the end, there's a scene where Alma pleads with Barney, right? Say, "Barney, please tell Korba where the jewels are. Save your life," that sort of thing. And Korba's watching, but nothing becomes of that, right? Barney doesn't give up any information. Alma doesn't pass him any information. Korba doesn't gain any information. That scene almost seems like it was thrown in there for no reason other than to give Alma another scene. Just to give Cicely Tyson, who's a fantastic actress, by the way, some more screen time. And it just didn't fit. It seemed like it was kind of shoehorned in to this episode. That's all I can say about that. Other than that, they avoided, the pointlessness of a lot of the romantic subplots that plagued other episodes. And this one isn't too bad, but I wanted to point out that even still, that was in there. The other thing that I find is really a bit of flaw in this episode, not so much a flaw, but it's certainly not good. The villains are... Well, this is a flaw. The villains are really, really lame. They have a weird kind of lameness here, just straight up, unadulterated greediness. They're just out for money and out to maintain their power. That's it. And the IMF just uses that against them. So in terms of being, great villains, no, they're really not. Pernell Roberts as Korba, to me, he really comes off as kind of an ineffective, cartoonish villain in a way, right? I can almost picture him, if he had enough facial hair, he'd be one of those kind of twirling his mustache villains. And because, while he's got this toughness, it's more of a facade. It's just like, well, I can only do this because I'm the chief of police, sort of thing. I think it's relatively easy for the IMF to bring him down. John Schuck, who plays Jocaro, Roberts' second in command, is exactly the same way, I feel. He's got exactly that level, if not more, of corruption and greediness. And he's the one who does the sort of stuff that Korba in most episodes would probably end up doing. He ends up sort of being the target that mostly gets manipulated in this episode by the IMF. But again, both of them just completely fall under the category of complete lameness just because they have one goal and one goal only, and it's not really even a very, very impressive one. Just greed for its own sake. Despite that, though, I'm going to stick with my grade of B. It's an enjoyable episode. I would say that it doesn't have a whole heck of a lot of rewatch value in terms of like once you know what's going to happen, do you really want to go back and watch it again? It could be. I find it entertaining myself, but I can understand that some people would say, "Nah, I've already seen it once." I get the point, and that's okay. Anyway, I think I'm going to leave it at that. As usual, thank you all for watching. Please like this review. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please leave your comments. Love to hear what you have to say. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.